Okay, so welcome to the think tank called Enthinkment Circle. We meet every Tuesday, and our job is to dig deep into philosophy. This 7-week series is on Heidegger. We're in the third week of it, and we're looking at what I call bets on the future. And our job is to prepare this background so that on Monday we can do a practitioner event on Growth OD for coaches and artists and consultants and sometimes executives. So that's what we're doing. I want to just compliment you, Sabine, for a really wonderful analysis. And um, we we've got a new test that's up on Growth OD and Enthinkment Circle and quantumstorytelling.org. It's up there, and it takes you step by step through what we call the 7 Bs. We started out 2 weeks ago. We did the beneath, going beneath into our assumptions and any idea that there's only one truth out there, our opinions, our concepts we use to filter what we're seeing, even some stereotypes. So we looked at the beneath. Then last week we looked at the history I call the before, and we went through Heidegger's what's called for having in English. And that is a huge concept. It's like super huge. That's one of the reasons we usually start on page 191 to 195 in the book, which we did today. But we've done that in the past, and I'll skip over that. But just to say that when I started this in 2001 with the word antecedent, and it had the two meanings, and antecedent is obviously the before, but they were the stem ante, I-N-T-E, meant also a bet. You ante up in poker. And this week is about bets for me. It's trying to dig into Heidegger, see what I can learn about and what you can teach me all and what we could speculate about bets. Bets is a big part of just about every culture. We were at the doctor's office, and there's a bet that Grace Ann's making that her health is going to be okay. We are buying a new piece of furniture, a sofa for the house here, and a new seat because Grace Ann says it's been 25 years, and she's got that tenacity of her bet that we are going to have a new couch, and it's going to be probably today. We looked at, so she's matching cloths for different kinds of colors. We went to big furniture house yesterday. I don't know what their obsession is. These furniture houses, they're putting all these canisters in your sofa for putting big mugs of beer or something in there. I don't know what the hell are they thinking. I don't want to, I'm a former alcoholic. I don't want to have a big mug of beer next to me or a big Coca-Cola. I don't drink all that sugar. Maybe a glass of water or something. What the hell's wrong with a coffee table? Anyway, so I don't like that as a prudent bet, which comes out of Heidegger. There's an anticipation that we found a used sofa that is imitation leather. They cost like $1,000 more than the cloth kind of sofas, and we can get it for like $900, which is about $1,200 less. So we're making these bets. Should we bet on the used sofa that's a little old lady used and never used and had no pets, or should we go and buy a brand new sofa, spend the $2,000 and delivery and trying to get rid of the old one? Anyway, so I'm always making bets all day long, and so are you. Don't deny it. You bet that the food you're going to cook, your other person there or your children is going to love. And when I had my children, all they wanted was Pop-Tarts and pizza and McDonald's. So I'll just trying to give you a little levity here. All right, so I'm going to now dig into something that I've been waiting to dig into. And Sabine was there a second ago. So we're looking here at a section of Being in Time. Let's see if we can find this section number. It's 262 is a section. It's in page 306 in the English version of Being in Time. So as Sabine was saying, being towards this possibility, and I'm stretching it and calling the possibility of a bet coming true or not coming true, authentic bet, inauthentic bet, people addicted to bet. There's an anticipation of a possibility, is anticipation highlighted here of this possibility. So I know, love my first wife, but you take her to Las Vegas, that woman would start pulling those slot machines and betting that she could put in a quarter, a dollar, a $10 chip or whatever, and come home with a lot of money. Me, I'm mathematical. I knew that no matter how much you play those games in Las Vegas, you're going to lose enough money to that casino in the long run. And I know a lot of friends of mine that are good at it, and they go and they'll take $20,000 and they'll bet. And when they hit the $20,000, they'll go home, with the money. Or if they lose $20,000, they'll go home, but they don't go over that amount. So I don't have that kind of self-control, so I just don't do it. When I was in the military, since Doug's here, little military thing, I was smoking. I was a smoker, and I was on the train going down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for my boot camp. And some of these, I was from New York, Staten Island at the time, and there's other New Yorkers about my age saying, "I want to play a little poker. What do you say?" Well, in about 5 minutes, I lost all my pocket money, and I didn't have checks at those times, and I didn't have credit cards at that time, and I didn't have a cell phone either because there weren't any cell phones. Anyway, so I had to go a whole month in basic training with no cigarettes, and then part of infantry that I got out of, by the way. And I learned I'm not good at poker, and I'm not going to play anybody because people can tell from my face if I got a good hand or not. So a little bit about bets. Now let's look here on this page here. Now it talks about, let's see if that's the one I wanted. Around. Let's go down to drop down to another one. No. Okay, let me find it. Anticipate. Okay. Okay, this entity, which anticipates its non-relational possibility, is thus forced by that very anticipation into the possibility of taking over from itself, its own most being. The way I translate that in my mind is if you go and gamble in Las Vegas and you're not really good and you don't have control and prudence, you're going to lose your shirt, your pants, and your car, and your house, and everything else like that. And in other words, gambling can take over your being. You know what I mean? Now, what I look at for next Monday is, okay, organizations, people, consultants, coaches, artists are making bets on the future all the time. The artists will bet that their art piece will be liked by people and adored, right? Coaches bet that the tools that they have as a coach or a consultant are going to work effectively and turn around an organization or an executive. So they anticipate this, but sometimes they can be taken over by the possibility. And I've worked with clients, and I'm not going to mention names, but I've worked with clients, and they take me over, and I get so involved in kind of propping up their bets on the future that I got little else I can take care of in life, and I have to put a stop to it and say, well, I love you very much, but you haven't been paying attention, so I'm going to back out of this deal. Maybe I'm being too applied here. Anticipation comes free of one's own death. Now, it is about death, but I think it's also what Sabine was mentioning, that the future is walking toward you or marching toward you or running toward you. It's not coming from the past. I mean, the future is coming ahead. That's what I love about Heidegger, is it's coming from ahead of you, and you're making all these anticipations, bets on the future, and believing that you have foresight, that you can foresee the future by the chips, by the cards on the table in the blackjack, right? By the wheel that's spinning, by counting the cards, if that was legal, but you try anyway. And then you're there. And I remember being on the catwalk over one of the big casinos in Las Vegas. They have a big bridge, and looking down at my now ex, who I love very much, by the way. And I got two children with me, and we're looking down. She's just pulling that thing, pulling that, trying to win that big pot. And, only thing I ever won in my whole life was coming in second in a clown race when I was about, I don't know, 9 years old in Alaska in an ice rink. So anyway, I have been very lucky, and I do have foresight in the Jain faith that I'm in, Jainism, uh, and in training we've had with Insight in California, who was a worldwide organization that Grace-Ann had me go through before she agreed to date me, much less marry me. We believe the universe is a positive place, and that if you pay attention to it, you can read the tea leaves and make a bet. I also am practicing as a Jain seer, Jain, Jainism, which means I can really tune in to my intuitive like that. I can go like that. Other people go, well, maybe I'll be intuitive. But maybe I'm not being intuitive. Maybe I'm being analytic. Maybe I don't think I'm being intuitive. I just go intuitive like that. Because I've had a lot of years training with a Jainism monk in India, how to do that, and he taught me. And then, so it was easy to get into shamanistic stuff and go into lower world, upper world. And then I met a bunch of Native Americans who said, don't do that. You're a white man. So you can't do that without offending me. So I just don't do it. So I said, well, what do I do? Then I found Lucero and Vanessa, and they taught me Reiki, Holy Fire Reiki, and then there's a whole thing connecting to lower world, connecting to upper heavens, which is like upper world. I'm going, okay, hallelujah, I'm back. I got a legitimate way to foresee the future and to do my tools, and I'm going like, and they even anyway, I won't go deep into that, but there's an anticipation that's there. And if we just look at some of the other uses of, let's see, anticipate, that's about it for that one. So where am I at? 309, 265. Thanks, Grace-Ann.
Can we go in about 5 minutes?
Yeah, we can go in 5 minutes. Page 306. Well, let's go back to 306 because that's where it began. So I just thought I'd go through a little bit of Heidegger without overwhelming you. Okay, there's to disclose understanding the possibility, right? Disclose it as a possibility. I'm talking about bets, I'm applying it. I know he's talking about death, but I'm not going there. A possibility we must put up with as a possibility. Suppose you make a bet. You're going to invest $2 million in a new facility. You're trying to save Kmart, whatever you were trying to do, and you invest the $2 million. Now, it's a possibility that that's going to move you toward fulfilling the bet and it's going to have a payoff. Now, it's also a possibility that that $2 million investment won't yield anything, and you will have to invest another 2 million and another 2 million and another 2 million. Now, I've been bankrupt before and I don't enjoy it. I was bankrupt after my divorce from my first wife. After um, what the heck happened? Oh, we got kicked out of a church. Yeah, or I got the whole family got excommunicated because we caught or the pastor and his wife thought we would catch them taking money out of the building fund. Well, we were making a bet that we should have all of our friendships in this church, and my daughter should teach Bible school, and I should teach men's group, do all that stuff, and that this would hold our marriage together. And all of a sudden, boom, it blew up. Wife left, took kids, bills were due. I had a house. She just bought a new car, took off to New York. I was in Los Angeles where I needed hundreds of thousands of dollars to live, and I was only making 19,000 a year, and extra jobs, maybe pumping that up to 25 or 40 thousand, which is not enough. If you lived in LA, tell me, if you're going to live in LA, you're going to make a bet. You better have $1 million in retirement money. You better have married very, very well. Or what happened to me is they showed me a garage and they said, well, Boji family, this garage will sell for $450,000. I'm saying, well, it's a garage. It's only parks one car. You want me to live there? And then my mother-in-law disowned me. I'm going a little deep into storytelling, but my mother-in-law, when I married not Grace Ann, Margaret, her name was, loved her very much, by the way, still do. She said, well, I want you to agree on marrying my daughter that you will only live on the beach in Los Angeles if you take that job. Or if you go to Florida, I'm not really happy about where you're going to Florida. The beaches aren't good where you'd have a job at Florida State. So choose UCLA, I did. And when she found out that it would cost $2 million for a property on the beach near Marina del Rey, Culver City, anywhere near there, $2 million, the woman was mad. Bam, mad. Her bet was not fulfilled and she wanted out of the bet. She wanted to just take her daughter and leave. Forget the kids, take the kids and the daughter. I don't know if any of you know that when you lose bets in your life, like divorce, bankruptcy, kids, children hating you after divorce, it's a shitload of stuff to deal with. You have the anticipation of this possibility, everything's going to work out, right? And what does it say? But in this way of behaving, does not there lurk coming close to the possible? And when one is close to the possible, does not its actualization emerge? Dude, when you bet, you better have the money because you could lose. And if you play poker, you put money in that pot, it is gone. Once you make a bet, it is gone, and it will be called due. And if you're attached to that, the possibility of the possible just becomes greater. The closeness which one may have in being towards death as a possibility, and same with gambling, as far as possible from anything actual, the more unveiledly this possibility gets understood, the more purely does the understanding penetrate into it as the possibility for the impossibility of any existence at all. Well, that's how I felt way back when. So what do y'all think about bets on the future? My twisty interpretation of Mr. Heidegger. Go ahead, Olivia. You are being taped.
When you were first talking about the gambling, it brought back how I think in probabilities, because I studied statistics and that was my, advanced degree. So it's funny to hear it being so win-lose, because I look almost everything, I think, well, that's probably about a 95% chance or a 30% chance. And then I decide what I'm willing to live with. So this is just a really fun way of thinking about it. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Well, it's just my first marriage, my kids, I love them all. I love them all, but they're math phobic. Me, I was in high school and I barely went to high school, but on the day I did, everybody's asking me to help them with their algebra homework because I understood algebra and understood a little mathematics, came naturally to me, and I aced calculus and all that stuff. Worked at it, but I aced it. So I look at those probabilities and I go like, no, I don't see the probability happening. No, not one out of one thousandth of a percent. And I'm going like, no, no, no. And same with coding. But I get into these things. I'm addictive like anybody else. I'm like, okay, it's going to work today. I'm going to work with Claude, and Claude's going to redo this code. He's got me going through API keys, and I don't know these terms I don't understand. I'm putting this code in these pockets of two things I had to pay for: Versal and GitHub, GIT Hub. And I've never seen these before, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to work. This is going to work. You know, I went through 2 days of this is going to work. Probably put in 19 hours in those 2 days, barely slept. I'm up at the crack of, well, I'm up before the sun is up, and I'm going, yeah, okay, this is going to work. And I got my 2 hour window with Claude, and I'm going to invest in that 2 hours. I'm going to bet it's going to work. And then the time runs out, and I've put in more prompts than I'm allowed, and it goes, you're closed, table closed. You come back in 4 hours. I'm going, oh, and now I'm back in 4 hours and I'm putting in more code and I'm saying, try this, try this, try this. So this morning I had a dream and my foresight told me, start over, dude. You put in like 10,000 lines of code. It's not working. You know, Claude is, doing the best he or she can, or it is an AI. And I said, okay, we're going to go with plan B. I'm going to take two programs I know that work, the personal mindfulness quotient and the dialogue health assessment. They both work. I said, Claude, we're going to take and do the same thing in those, but we're going to do it with the seven B's from Heidegger. Where they were actually, I drained them from Heidegger in my 2001 book. And then we're going to make that work today. And I'm going to make little short comments like, make it work like that one. Forget what we have been doing. That bet is off. And then go. And so the first pass, he got a program that worked, but it had the wrong saving things to my email. So there's like a file thing I pay for. So we got new file codes, set up new files in those accounts. Boom, it worked. And then I have one little change to make sure if they go to part one and they do this story seed, right? And they can type a line of their story, and then we'll guide them through about leadership, going through all seven B's. And I'm right there on the edge. And the window goes up. You've used up all your Claude for the month. Come back next month. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of time on a Saturday. And that's it. Window closed. Bets, no more bets. And I had to go with what's there. But what was there, beautifully enough, is they do part one and then they can go on to part two and part three, which Paul did and which I did several times testing. But it's not sending the full results. So I'm only getting the pieces. So I did get all the people's stuff on story seeds of leadership. I just called S story seeds of leadership. So it worked. But the bigger bet that I wasn't able to pull off was, I got the questions I showed you at the beginning, and then people type in their sentence or a couple sentences, and then it goes on to the next. It goes from the beneath to the before to the best. But what I wanted was something more lively. Like I got all 3 books loaded up. I got all of the newsletters we've done, all the Enthinkment stuff. And I just told it, don't you dare mention a German word. Don't you dare use the FORE before anything. Don't you dare use auntie or auntie narrative. I don't want any of that in there. So that took a pass, and you got that straight. But we would have been able to have people type a sentence and then do something like, well, why is that important to you? Or some other question appropriate to it, and then do another thing. Where does that come from? Just simple questions, but we're not able to do that yet. So I still bet I can do it. You see how much of a gambler I am, Sabine?
Some thoughts came into my head, and since we are a think tank, I'm just gonna blurt them out. The thought of hope versus certainty came into my head. When you're making bets, right, you are assessing a lot of things, but and when he talked about openness to the situation, right? If you are out on the street and you have nothing to lose anyway, you might gamble those $20 that you have, right? That whole assessment, I think there is a proportionality to this in relationship to where you are, right? Like with a business, right? Let's say you're a business and it's not going well, and you're going to look at other possibilities as to what you might do to bring customers into the door. And some of them might be risky, but if you're on the brink of bankruptcy anyway, right, you might say, okay, this just might work. So I guess what I'm saying is, there is an assessment of the situation as to how much you're gonna bet and what kind of a gamble you're taking, how much is it gonna cost you, and again, I feel like that a whole idea of, of levels that precede certainty, right?
Yep.
As Olivia pointed out, the odds. I think there's just this vague hope, perhaps, oh, well, okay, I'm desperate anyway, so I might as well try, paint my restaurant purple. Maybe that will bring
It's a
people
good
in,
point.
kind
A
of.
good point.
There's a hope, which is, a big gamble, but then there's also, like the odds, as Olivia pointed out, as, where you go through an assessment of, will this work or not work? But I think in order to do that, you have to be in a certain situation or place too, where you do that.
Okay.
So I think a lot of this is, context dependent.
Oh, it's very context.
We all know that.
Very, very.
Right?
We're going to
I
give
feel like there are
Olivia.
these levels as to what we assess and don't assess,
Okay.
and I think it's like a risk assessment, right?
It is a
What do
risk
I have to
assessment.
lose?
I'll turn it over to you a minute, Olivia. So, Grace Ann and I studied Enron. We did about half a dozen articles on that whole Enron debacle. And there was a guy in there, I forget his name right now, but he got an award from the Risk Assessment Journal, the biggest journal in finance for risk assessment. It's not called that, but it was. And he got the annual award for having the best risk assessor. Now, where does he work? He works at Enron. And what was he doing? He was making up the numbers, and because his boss told him to. The bosses, right? Jeff Skilling, right? And they said, who, by the way, used to, his annual thing was to dress like Darth Vader and have everybody dress in Star Wars character. One of the vice presidents used to ride an elephant into the room, they were doing a lot of hype and con artists, and so I love studying them. But it was clear from the stock reports that were coming out quarterly and from the like Barron's and the Moody's and those people that this Enron was going to go under. And maybe 8 months down the road, and they actually got one of them, I think it was Moody's guys, fired, who was a risk assessor, and said, "Oh, if you say anything about Enron, we're going to get you fired." And they got him fired. And one of the vice presidents committed suicide. He was upset about the duplicity. And then you could have known from just looking at the stock prices that were going down, 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 down like this, but people were hanging on, betting that it would go up, 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 up again, believing the hype. And they lost their retirement account. Unions lost their retirement account. Universities lost the whole retirement package if it was heavily invested in Enron. California about went under from the whole Enron energy stuff that what they were doing. Anyway, I'm just making a point that you can assess the risk, but you better be listening to somebody who's honest about the risk. Go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, it reminds me of Jim Cramer being wrong about just about everything. But anyway, can I share a story that kind of ties together gambling and intuition? It's just a fun story. When I was speaking, I went to Australia to teach a course for SAS Institute, and they invited me to be a dinner speaker at a casino that used their software. And so I did a talk, and then they all wanted to go gambling. And I don't really like gambling. I don't like the energy of it. And I know the odds, right? Like you said, David. So, but it was sort of a party. And so I went, and the one game that I feel like I can do fairly well at is blackjack, especially if I can sit on the right and I can kind of almost unconsciously count cards. So I know how to, tweak the odds, and I tap into my intuition. And so I was very disciplined. I think I gave myself a limit of $45 or something, and I bought chips, and then I kept my winnings. So I never took the winning. I never left the winnings on the table. And I just kept consistently winning. I was doing really well. And all the other guys, there was about 5 other men who were the ones that talked me into going up there. They had all lost all the money that they had decided to bet. And now they're all standing behind me, watching me as I'm doing this gambling. And there was one time that I didn't take my winnings back, and I just didn't think about it. And the guy behind me said, "Oh, don't you want to take your winnings?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, I do." And I took them. And that time I split and got 2 blackjacks. So I think my unconscious mind was saying, "Don't take your winnings back this time." It was just this really thing where I went, "Oh, my intuition was right on, but my analytic mind overrode it because this guy prompted me." But I ended up making about $200, and I still don't like to gamble but I think, and just one other time I did roulette where I would just picture a color and I could win that way as well. So I know they don't let you stay very long if you win for a long time, but if you're ever forced to go gambling, trust your intuition. You might win some money.
Olivia, if I ever go gambling, I'm taking you with me. But what you're making me understand, after David and Sabine had given their vision of bets that can be assessed, the context, etc., the one thing I'm realizing is you're all talking about bets in the context of calculated risks and the ability to calculate or to feel for the intuition. What I think often happens is we make really poor bets ignorantly, but we can learn from them. And that's what life, this is Bakhtin talking, by the way, where everything is building on everything, the connection to everything. And therefore, sometimes we make a very bad bet. And David's bets quite often gave me the impression that, wow, that was a learning experience. Wow, that was a learning experience. But we're not always able to capitalize on it. So the kind of bet we're talking about is sometimes linked to good thinking first, and sometimes it's what we do with it after. But in any case, it's what life is all about. How do we ever move forward? By making bets. And risk-averse people are not the most fascinating I've ever met. You know, they're very good at staying out of trouble, but that's about all they are. You know, so
You made-
more power to you. Mhm.
Thank you. And you just reminded me. So every night, Tom and I walk around the neighborhood. And there's a big hill, and then we like this one street to come back. But there's a cross street that doesn't have a stop sign. Every night, we're sort of gambling. Okay, we look to see who's coming, and then do we shoot across or not? And it made me realize we're betting. I mean, we're doing the odds in our head. Like, do they
That's
see
right.
us? Are they going fast? There's just all these calculations, and it's really
Yeah.
funny how we
Yeah.
laugh while we're doing it.
Yeah. He's laughing now.
Is
You guys could carry on for a bit. I got to drive, and we're betting that this couch is the one we want. We got to drive over right now because we've been waiting 2 days to see it. I'm going to stay online and listen.
Good luck.
Paul, did you want to say something?
Earlier in the conversation, Sabine, I think, made the statement, made the point, and I think believes what she was saying, and that is, we human beings, 2 sentences, we have possibility and we are possibility. And this discussion of betting and the whole notion of bets is about probability. And it makes me think about the distinction, and this is something I would, try to find in Heidegger. Oh, what does Heidegger have to say throughout his opus about probability versus what he has to say about possibility? And that's a distinction, when I think about, my daily life, what am I going to do tomorrow or later today? I don't entertain either probability or possibility. They're not, those terms are not in my mind. I just do stuff. David is talking about, the purchase of an item of furniture, and in this most marvelous way, applying somehow this very metaphysics that we are talking about. Oh, here's Heidegger, who talks about death. Oh, what does death have to do with buying a couch? And those sorts of questions arise in my head, and I'm always trying to make the connection. Oh, Heidegger talks a lot about death and how important it is, okay, as a concept or whatever. It is a fruitful concept, a useful term, something that we can dance with. I know I'm going to die. If there's any certainty in a world of uncertainty and quantum reality, the one thing always in all of our minds, it's not always there. But what we know is that I am going to die. So what? And to me, the point that Sabine didn't make so much today, but in our previous session, the whole point of coming to terms with death is that it opens up possibility and probability. And the crazy paradox is the idea that I can entertain the possibility of the impossibility of my sticking around forever. I can entertain the notion that I'm not going to be here. And the fact that I can grab that notion, oh, dude, you're going to die. Now what? So what? And there's a whole train of stuff that comes after that. And I just want to leave that thought hanging in the air. It it occupies my mind a lot. And in a simple way, most people are, I'll make this bold saying, most human beings don't want to die. They're afraid of death. Let's not talk about it. My own two children refused to go up to the coffin of their own grandfather and grandmother at their funeral because my two stepchildren, whatever, they were afraid of death. I don't want to deal with this. That's when they were in their 20s. I don't know that either one of them has, gotten away from that. But to me, I was always in funeral homes as a young person because so many friends were dying. And so death became nothing to fear. Now, I'm just wondering about this. I have nothing further to say. I love the fact that Heidegger makes a big deal out of it. I only wish I could understand all the steps of reasoning. Very hard to understand, and I'm very thankful that Sabine's, I'll use the word interpretation, and I think that's an excellent way of saying what Sabine always does with Heidegger. She makes sense of things that I cannot make sense of. And I find that very powerful.
Thank you. Who has a hand up? I see a hand, but I don't know whose it is. Tom, is that you?
Yeah, I got my hand up.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Sabine, and thank you, David, for today. It was really informative. My question is, where does manifestation fit into this? So if I believe that I can manifest things and I can think about that, where does that idea fit into the Heidegger?
Story Seed of Leadership has just been released by growthod.org. It's an assessment of your leadership. It takes about 15 minutes. And you click on it, and it's in 3 parts. So your story seed are all the fragmented bits of experience you've got, expectations and dreams of you becoming a leader. And it's laid out in this, what I call the 7 B's. And I've been working on it for, 35 years. And it's now available. And you can go there for free. You build your wonderful narrative identity as a leader out of little story seed fragments. And that's about it.